Hey, welcome to the Explainer. Today we're diving into a story that, yeah, it starts with one of the planet's most incredible animals, but you'll see pretty quickly that it's actually a story about, well, everything. It's about this huge, interconnected web of life and where we all fit in. So let's just start with a number, 3,682. That is the latest official count of wild tigers in India. And look, this number is a huge deal, a real testament to some incredible conservation work. But it's also super fragile. It's just one single thread in a much, much bigger story about the health of our entire planet. Okay, so to really get why that number is so important, we have to understand what a tiger is to its environment. It's what scientists call a keystone species. I mean, think about it. It's literally like the keystone in an arch, right? You pull that one stone out, and the whole thing comes crashing down. Tigers keep herbivore populations in check, which keeps the vegetation in balance, and that affects literally countless other species. Their presence is basically a giant sign that says this ecosystem is healthy and working. And that's not all. This leads us to another really cool idea, the tiger as an umbrella species. See, tigers need a ton of space to live and hunt. So when we set aside and protect all that land just for them, we're basically opening up this giant conservation umbrella. And underneath it, everything else gets protected automatically. The deer, the insects, the trees, the whole shebang. Okay, so we have this beautiful protective umbrella, but it's starting to get some serious holes poked in it. The dangers that tigers are facing, they're really just symptoms of a much bigger problem. The whole web that supports them and us is starting to unravel. So how does this unraveling actually happen? Well, it's kind of like a domino effect. First, you just lose the habitat outright. Poof, it's gone. Then, whatever's left gets all chopped up into these tiny, isolated islands of nature. And here's the real kicker. That isolation means populations get trapped. They can't mix, which leads to inbreeding and makes them way more vulnerable to being completely wiped out in that one area. And to really grasp the sheer scale of what's at stake, scientists have this term, biodiversity hotspot. Now, this isn't just some pretty place with a lot of animals. No. For a place to get this label, it has to have a massive, irreplaceable number of unique species, and it has to have already lost at least 70% of its original home. You know, it's basically the ecological version of an emergency room. And get this, India is home to 4 of these 36 global hotspots. We're talking about the Himalayas, the Indo-Burma region, the Western Ghats in Sri Lanka, and the Sundalands. These aren't just names on a map. They are the absolute epicenters of both incredible life and, unfortunately, incredible threat. All right, so let's pull back from the tiger's world for a second and look at the big picture. What are the massive forces that are driving all this? Well, it pretty much all comes down to the size of our human footprint on this planet. And this is where things get really, really serious. The source material has this quote that just, wow. It says we're in the middle of the 6th mass extinction. But unlike the others caused by, asteroids or ice ages, this one is anthropogenic. That's a sciencey way of saying it's caused by us, human-induced. You can think of the main causes as kind of like the 4 horsemen of this extinction event. We've already talked about the first one, habitat loss and fragmentation. Then you've got pollution and climate change, which are just huge. The third is invasive species, new plants or animals that come in and just take over. And the fourth is good old-fashioned overexploitation and the illegal wildlife trade. And if you need to see the numbers to believe it, just look at this. These stats from the Living Planet report are absolutely staggering. An average decline of 95% in monitored wildlife populations in Latin America and the Caribbean. 95%. 76% in Africa, 60% in the Asia-Pacific region. This is a quiet collapse happening right under our noses. Okay, so that's a lot of doom and gloom. But, and this is a big but, the story is not over. Not by a long shot. Faced with this crisis, there's a huge global effort picking up steam to fight back, to become guardians of the wild, and to start the long, hard work of fixing what's broken. In India, this isn't a new fight. It's been going on for decades, built on some really key moments. It all kicked off with a solid legal foundation, the Wildlife Protection Act back in '72. A year later, they used that foundation to launch Project Tiger, which is a huge reason we can even count over 3,000 tigers today. And then, in 2006, they made it even more official by creating the National Tiger Conservation Authority. So all these efforts led to this network of protected areas. But you might see terms like national park and wildlife sanctuary thrown around. So what's the difference? Well, the simple version is that national parks are about protecting the entire ecosystem. Human activity, strictly a no-go. Sanctuaries, on the other hand, are often zeroed in on protecting a specific animal or habitat, so they might allow some very limited, very regulated human activity. It's all about having the flexibility to do what's best for a certain area. And it's so important to remember that these national efforts aren't happening in isolation. They're plugged into this huge global framework. It's like having multiple layers of defense. You've got CITES, which is all about stopping the illegal trade of animals across borders. You have the UNFCCC, tackling the massive threat of climate change. And then there's the CBD, which is trying to protect, well, all life at every single level. So, okay, we've looked at the problem, we've looked at the fight back, which brings us to the most important question of all, right? With everything we now know about this incredible web of life and the dangers it's in, what's the path forward? And what's our part to play in all of this? Look, at the end of the day, the story of the tiger is really our story. It's the ultimate lesson that we just can't save one animal by itself. Real conservation, the kind that actually works, is about protecting the whole system. It's about the health of the forests making our oxygen, the rivers giving us our water, and the stable climate that makes this planet even livable. So I guess we'll just leave you with this one final thought to chew on. If protecting that one umbrella species can cause this amazing positive ripple effect, if saving the tiger really does mean saving the forest, and saving the forest helps save the whole planet, then where does our part in that story even begin? Thanks so much for joining us.